But Airbnb has come out recently in the last little bit with, this last year and this year with some couple cool things. And recently they've come out with Airbnb rooms.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Moore, and we're here with a Whiskey Wednesday segment with my main man, Mr. Dave Svulich. How's it going, brother?
Hey, buddy. What's up?
Ready to go for another one of these?
Ready to go.
All right. What are we talking about today?
Well, I feel like I'm back on track. I was a little off last week because I didn't have the Coke Zero.
Yeah, we got the Coke Zero back. We even got you the one with the Hulk. Look at that. We got the Marvel comic one.
So I feel a
been
lot
working
better.
out.
Feel a lot better today. About,
all right, good.
So
got rid of the Spindrift. Got back to Coke Zero. Like we're back in action.
Yeah, we're back in action.
I like it.
So all right, well, let's talk. First question. A little light on the subject, but who is someone that has influenced your life and why?
I would say the biggest influence is probably my kids. Like, I feel like things changed for me so much when I had kids.
That's good.
Right? I feel like that, I just looked at things a little different, right? With that, it's funny when you kind of get stuck in a rut and in your own ways. And I'm really, me, I'm so everything's got to be the exact same way. I do the same thing every day, the same. So one, it was really I felt like it was really humbling for it to have the kids, right? Yeah. And then secondly, to really start to look at things from a different lens. Like, kids are just like, everything's like new, and like there's just wonder and hope, and everything's possible, and really just kind of soaking that in. I probably would say that those two have the biggest influence on anything I've ever done. Yeah. Because of that, I was such a changed person after it.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah.
How about you?
I would say my dad, probably the biggest influence. And I think of that because I look back on my work ethic and, just the things that I was taught, my morals, my values. I always looked up to him and watched him, just like any kids do,
right.
Just like your kids do with you.
Yeah.
So I would say, I look back on my young life and just most important, I think I took the work ethic from him. We did a lot of work together. He made us do the work. He made us do it right. He spent a lot of time working with us, and so showed us that example. So I think I'm most thankful for that. So that's probably, one of the biggest influences.
Sure. It's funny. It's most likely, I would say, 90% of us are going to say some version of a family member. Yeah. And so it's interesting how different family members impact us, but it's for sure. Obviously makes sense. They're our biggest influence, right?
Yeah,
good or bad.
Let's dive in. Today we got a pretty interesting and good topic, I think. Okay. Airbnb. Obviously we like to keep up with what's going on with all the platforms and the softwares and all that kind of stuff. But Airbnb has come out recently in the last little bit with, this last year and this year with some couple cool things. And recently they've come out with Airbnb rooms. Yeah. And they kind of are getting back to where they actually started from and their roots when they actually just rented out a room in a house. And that's kind of how Airbnb got started. And obviously it's transitioned and it's mainstream and it's big, but they're kind of going back to, hey, what about creating a room within your home or your place of, residence, and really creating an amazing experience and setting that up, and then just renting a room out versus a whole property or a house or a condo or stuff. So kind of an interesting topic, kind of an interesting concept. I don't think it's for everybody. But I do think with millennials this day and with individual travelers and couples traveling, there might be some interest. And I think it'll be a hit. Couple interesting facts about it. The average nightly rate for a room is $67. So pretty cheap. Yeah. There are some things that you go through that are different than renting a typical, short-term rental. You get to know the host a lot better. They also get to know you a lot better because there's way more of an interaction with the guest because they're coming into your home. They're staying in a room. You might have drinks with them. You might have dinner with them. They have more access to your house, things like that. So you want to make sure that you're compatible with who you're bringing in and stuff. So interesting, but they're doing a big push on that, as well as the icons, and we can kind of talk about both those a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, it's really consistent with what Brian Chesky has always been about, which is he's a really kind of forward-thinking entrepreneur. This is not a startup anymore. He still makes kind of startup moves though, which I think people appreciate. I appreciate it. I think it's great that he stays within his roots of what got Airbnb to where they're at today. And a lot of people, like with the icons, with the rooms and stuff, they're saying, these are just PR plays, like, because you're not going to make probably a lot of money with rooms as an investor, right? I'm not going to do. Yes. I'm not. That's not a strategic play for me as an investor to be able to figure out how to maximize that. The average nightly rate is $67. It's a lot of work. It's more of a social play, but there's going to be people that fits for. But also, what he's really looking at is, how do I get more users on the platform? Mm-hmm. Like what Brian is, I think, and this is all speculative. I've never had a conversation with him, just looking from the outside looking in. These are really, really good marketing plays. I think as a marketer, I think it's really brilliant. I mean, how many people are talking about it? Like a lot of people were giving him a bunch of crap for the icons, and we can talk about that in a minute. Same thing with the rooms is, why would you do that? Why would you go away from this? And even Vrbo, the main competitor is, they run ads, huge ad campaigns, kind of bashing these plays, which is great for them too. But guess who's talking about it? Everybody. Yeah. Everybody's talking about it. We're talking about it. Other people are talking about it, whether you like it or don't like it. And Brian has done a good job on the user interface of trying to connect and bring in users, and he's it almost feels like it's becoming kind of a social media platform to highlight and showcase these crazy, unique things, right? And I don't know that that's a bad thing for them.
Part of it's a curiosity play too.
It is.
People will be curious about. We've always stayed at a house and got our own place. Maybe we travel this time and we try a room. You know what I mean?
And there's a group for that, right? He started off. It was couch surfing essentially, right? They were in urban centers, urban areas where, kids essentially could go around and couch surf in these cool areas. That's really kind of how Airbnb got started, and then it's evolved to what it is today. It's bringing that back just in a cooler way, right? And some of these rooms there are these great experiences. Like you said, you meet the host a lot of times. They're cooking you dinner. You're having drinks with them. You're doing different things with them. Not for everybody. It's probably not, as an investor, I'm not going to run down that road. Right. But I don't know that. I would not say it's a bad move for Airbnb. I think it's a cool move because it stays and keeps them, people talking about it, keeps them relevant in the conversations that they're making these updates, they're doing these changes, and they're not just becoming this behemoth OTA, all about doing the same thing that everybody else is doing, right? And so they're bringing in these different things. The icons is a great example. Super, super limited. Very few people are ever going to ever stay at one of those icon houses, like the Ferrari Museum, the Up House. I mean, going on tour with rock stars that are on there. Right. It's so limited on what you can and can't do, but it's really cool to talk about. Everybody's talking about it. They're like, man, that would be cool to go stay there. Most likely, you're never going to be able to do it. But what I think that they've done as a long-term play, it's a great way for them to capture new users. Not only a PR stunt of what everybody's accusing of. I don't think it was a PR stunt. I think it was a much more strategic marketing play to gain users on the platform personally. But even if it was a PR stunt, did it work? Absolutely. I mean, how many people are talking about it? I mean, and lots of people are talking about it. Lots of people are going on there and they're seeing these cool, these crazy experience type houses, stays, it's not always it's not even a house or a stay a lot of times. Sometimes it's just going on tour with a rock star, right? Things like that. But what I think that they're doing, if you pay attention on the icons, you can't go look at them. You can't see availability unless you have an account on there. Yeah. And so what they're doing is they're capturing especially a younger audience base that is curious, right, on the social media stuff. And they're saying, hey, I'm gonna capture these customers early on, right? All the big brands do it. Every single brand, like the most marketing dollars spent are on between 18 and 25-year-olds, because marketers know there's this thing called this confirmation bias. Once you choose something, specifically a brand, you will stick with it. Right. Same with, we're in an election year. Same as when you choose whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. You almost will stick with that no matter what, right? And so marketing dollars are spent toward the younger users. Well, Brian, and again, I wasn't on the strategic board. I'm not. This is all speculative, right? This is just me saying what I
Right.
think they
Yeah.
did, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to act
We're
like
spitballing it. Heck
I'm
yeah.
right. Like this is just Shawn
Right.
on the as an armchair quarterback thinking. I don't think it was just a PR play,
Right.
but I think what he's saying is, hey, listen, how can we go out and capture a user base? Get them to form a profile on our platform. What would be interesting to them? What is that 18 to 25-year-old group? What are they interested in?
Mm-hmm.
Because eventually that 18 to 25-year-olds are going to be 25 to 35-year-olds, and they're already on there. They're using it. They're familiar. And guess when they start booking properties? And so I think it's a really brilliant, strategic, long-term play to bring on these aspects into that platform so that ultimately they start to make money from these consumers that are on their platform by booking these properties. Because, most of us are very similar, right? When we choose Ford or Chevy, you choose BMW over Mercedes. Like once you kind of buy the one, you kind of stick with it, right? Where people are very brand loyal.
Right.
And it's really hard to gain a person, but it's, I mean, once they've said, hey, I'm a Mercedes guy, or I'm a BMW guy, or I'm a Ford guy, or I'm a Chevy guy, whatever they say they are, they stick with it and they'll defend it,
for sure.
And if somebody says early on, I'm an Airbnb over a Vrbo person, right? I mean, I prefer Airbnb over Vrbo. That's great. That's great for them. So how do they keep them engaged on there? Because Icons is a brilliant example.
Yeah.
It's like, these are some of the coolest iconic type of things that you could go do. You're not almost nobody's going to go do it. Right. But you have to form a profile. You have to have a user profile to even check them all out. And so now you're on there, and it's more of a social media platform. We scroll on Instagram all the time. We scroll on Facebook. We look at TikTok, all these different social media platforms to be entertained. He's finding a way to entertain, I believe, a younger audience base, and then ultimately they're there when they want to book properties, right? And
it's good to keep up on what's going on in the industry. You can always learn from kind of the marketing and the advertising and the experience that they're creating, both on the icons and the rooms section of that. So I think it's great. I think it's more than anything, it's interesting. There's curiosity, and we want to see what's going on, and we want to watch the video. We want to, see what the strategies are. So I think you're probably spot on in a lot of the ways.
Well, and I just think it's fascinating from a business standpoint, watching these bigger businesses, some of the strategic moves they make, the things that, and obviously we only have the benefit of seeing it after the fact, when it happens, when it rolls out, and then we can speculate why we think. But even with their acquisition of, I think it's called Game Planner, $200 million acquisition of an AI company, that they're going to go all in with AI on that platform. Well, guess what AI feeds off of? Customer data, right? So if they can get all these new customers and they can collect all that data, those AI tools, and when they start implementing them, all of a sudden now you can run really, really fast. And so it's really interesting to see, and it's exciting, right? We have properties on Airbnb. We want to maximize, we want to make money, but they've got millions and millions of eyeballs on there, and they're continuing to get more. And I think they're being very, very strategic about it on a long-term play of trying to get that really young customer base, which really aren't customers for their host, right? We don't even allow somebody under 25 to book a property, right? And so they're not really even customers for us right now, but they know those customers grow up, right?
Exactly.
And if they can get them that brand loyalty before they start spending the dollars, now all of a sudden every dollar they spend is going to be on that platform.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Well, we'll kind of see what happens, see how it plays out, and it'll be interesting to watch. So
see if we're right.
Exactly. We typically are most of the time. I mean, you know what I mean? At least we think we are.
We tell ourselves we are.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, let's jump into a couple questions. What's the biggest obstacle you have faced when trying to launch a property? So what do you, like you personally, when you've launched properties, or I guess you could go in to say, what you feel like maybe our members face, but what's that obstacle when launching, specifically launching a property?
I think so I'm going to rewind back, and like some of the biggest mistakes I made launching was trying to launch before the property was ready. Okay. Right. Yeah. And so what happens then is because there's so many people who buy a property and we say, hey, we need to set it up and we need to create this unique experience. We have to have management in place. We have to have all these things in place before you actually take it to the market. Right. Well, what happens is, and I made this mistake a lot early on and didn't realize how much money it was costing me and how big of an obstacle it created was you buy this property, you're like, man, my mortgage payment's starting in a month. I need to get this thing live. I need to get somebody coming in. And you what happens is when you launch a property, and most people launch them on the OTAs like Airbnb, Vrbo, they give you extra special attention and love, basically extra exposure when you're brand new. And you don't want to waste that exposure. And what happens is you create this massive obstacle for you. If you get all this extra exposure, you're not quite ready. You got a property that's 70% ready, but not all the way. And people see it and they're like, that's not really that great because I just saw Dave's property and his is all the way ready. I'm going to go to that one, right? And so what happens is you train that algorithm, you train the OTA that you don't have a product that their customer base wants to buy, right? And so then all of a sudden you get buried. That obstacle, it's really hard to dig yourself out of getting buried. It's way easier to gain the momentum when you have the eyeballs. And so I would say, and I think that's the biggest mistake almost, when I see somebody on a launch, is they launch before they're ready. And then they create this massive obstacle for them. They thought they were going to help themselves by getting dollars in their bank account sooner. But what happens is they leave a lot on the table, they get buried, and it's really hard to kind of, rise from the depths, if you will, of getting buried, because you train the algorithm right out of the gate, one way or the other. You're either an offer, a product that they make money on and people book, and they will reward you for that, or you're not. And they will bury you, basically. Your exposure gets buried, and that is a massive obstacle down the line.
And it's a little bit of a dilemma. And I'm glad we're kind of talking about this, because as a new short-term rental owner, you're so excited. You want to get it up. You want to put it on the OTAs. You want to get your first bookings. You want to kill it. Your momentum's there. You're so excited. And then a lot of times, because they don't make sure that it's super ready, then they get discouraged and I'm not getting the bookings that I want. And then we take a peek at it and say, well, here's why. Because it's not set up correctly, or the experience isn't there, or the photos look terrible, or whatever that is. So I think that's a really good, valid point to make sure that as you dive into this, make sure that it's ready.
Yeah, and those decisions create obstacles for you, right? When you say, what is the biggest obstacle? We create our own obstacles typically by the mistakes we make, the decisions we make along the way. This is why planning is so critical in that acquisition phase and that setup phase. How many times do we tell people, they're like, well, I bought it, I've got to get it online, or usually it's looking back and they say, I had to get it online and my designer wasn't ready, the photographer wasn't ready, the artwork wasn't quite there. And so I've got to launch it before, because now that stuff's backed up. Well, if you would have done a better job planning all that stuff out and didn't think you could make one phone call and it's going to be there next week, those things take time. And so you plan that out, pre-offer, pre-acquisition. And most people don't do it until they're 2 weeks away from closing and they start thinking about that stuff. And so it's understanding what you need to do to have a really successful launch. First of all, you should have a checklist. It's a long checklist too, by the way. If you don't have one and it's not a long one, you're probably not doing it right. And you need to make sure you get through that entire checklist before you go live, because you're going to waste the most valuable thing that those OTAs are going to give you right out of the gate, which is exposure.
Well, and I think too, being proactive with scheduling those people.
Yeah.
Don't get everything ready and then be like, okay, I guess we got to get a photographer in here. Yeah. Start working on the photographer before you need the photographer. If it's 2 months out, make sure 2 months prior you're working on getting a photographer. Same with design, same with shipping, same with all that kind of stuff. So
exactly, it's awesome. All planning, it's all understanding the steps, and that's what most people just don't realize. They think they're going to buy a property, throw it on Airbnb or Vrbo or whatever OTA they choose, and then the bookings are just going to be there. They're going to get there. That's not how it works. I mean, if you want to make any money in this game, there's a process to follow.
Good. All right, buddy. Well, that's what we got today.
Okay.
Short and sweet. Yep.
All right.
We're not messing around. I think that right there was marketing gold. So, I mean, let's get after it. Oh, hey, wait.
It was speculation gold. That was for sure.
Yeah, we are. By the way, we are doing and I guess put a little plug in, but we are doing our Utah meetup, our Vodacy meetup. We're having folks from various states in the West here coming in from Washington and Nevada and Wyoming and Idaho and Utah. We're going to have a great venue. So we're super excited. It's a great chance for our members to meet each other, spend some time with you, do a little networking. And so anyways, we're super excited.
I'm excited.
We have them every month, and this month just happens to be in our hometown.
We love it.
So we don't we don't have to worry too much about
When no
getting there and
travel
all
or-
that.
I know,
Super
we're-
nice, right?
Yeah, we're doing Whiskey Wednesday,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna be sitting there with having some drinks and food and good
Heck
company
yeah.
a little bit later.
Oh,
So
it's going to be awesome. So
Yeah, I'm
so
excited.
as you know, those who listen to this and be aware of the Vodacy meetups. We do one every month, and we'll keep you posted on where they are, and we'll probably make it to the Midwest and to the East Coast this summer.
Yeah.
And go from there.
Go follow us on Instagram. You know, I always post them.
Yeah.
However, we post them to our group first, our actual paid mentorship.
Yeah.
And because we usually cap them about 50 people.
Yeah.
And so because we always go get a restaurant, a patio somewhere, you know, and we get some food and drinks and hang out for a few hours. And then, but we always open them up to our followers as well, but they're always last second. So I usually post them a day or two before.
Yeah.
So if we are in your city, just follow it. Every month we're going somewhere where we've been traveling around a lot. We're at our hometown today, which is really fun. And you know, bring some people into Ogden, Utah. We're going to watch the Raptors play. We got the Budweiser Clydesdales coming down. We
let's go.
I wish I could say that we got them, but they're
No,
like they're going to be right there for us. And
Heck yeah.
it'll be a fun night.
It'll be great. So we're excited. Awesome.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we will wrap it up. You guys know how much we appreciate your time. We know how valuable it is, and we do appreciate you spending it with us. At the end of every episode, I ask you two favors. First one is, if you got any value out of this, share it with somebody you know. Those things help us. We don't run ads. We don't have sponsorships. We don't want people telling us what to do, how to do it, what to promote. And so we rely on you guys to share the show and spread the message. And so if you have more than 30 seconds, like it, review it on whatever platform you're watching or listening on. And as a reminder, whatever platform you're on, you can leave us a comment of a question that you have, and we'll make sure that we answer it on an upcoming Whiskey Wednesday segment. And so Dave always grabs those questions, and we want to get those answered for you. So leave us a comment with a question. We'll make sure we answer it, and then share the show. The final, most important thing that I ask you at the end of every episode is pick that one thing you can do today to start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends. Cheers,
Cheers,
brother.
buddy. Good job.